I want to give you an example of 7 benefits that you're going to get from attending this program. Fair enough? Sure. Number 1 benefit. I believe that your self-esteem is going to be immeasurably enhanced and expanded as a result of attending this seminar. How many of you would like to have more self-esteem? I rest my case. Principle number 2. You'll sell more in less time, making more money, and become rich. How many of you like to sell more in less time as a benefit? Could I see a raise of hands? How many of you be willing to sell? Principle number 3 is sell yourself rich. Could I see a raise of hands?
Every sales professional has stories about the ones that got away, the big deals that slipped off the hook at the last minute. This 1-volume video seminar can help you bring those deals home. Welcome to Career Track's 38 Proven Ways to Close That Sale with Mark Victor Hansen. In this powerful video seminar, Mark Victor Hansen outlines 38 closing secrets used by top sales professionals. It's a master class in persuasion that will dramatically improve your job satisfaction and your results. Whether you sell on a retail floor, on the road, or from a penthouse office, this video is a great way to enhance your ability to land the big ones. Along with being an acclaimed author and entrepreneur, your presenter, Mark Victor Hansen, is a top salesman himself. From age 9, when he sold greeting cards, to today, when he travels 250,000 miles a year to sell people on their own potential, Mark has spent his life mastering the art of selling. In part 1 of this program, Mark teaches you the appointment close, the comparison close, and the what does it cost close, along with 7 other successful closes. And now, let's join Mark Victor Hansen as Career Track presents 38 Proven Ways to Close That Sale.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm elated to be with you. Today, welcome. We're going to talk about 38 proven ways to close that sale. This program is designed for salespeople, and everyone sells somebody, sometime, somehow, somewhere. The program is designed so you can serve greatly no matter what it is that you do. Each and every one of us needs to have sales and persuasion skills, and that's what we're going to talk about, so you can serve greatly. We're also going to talk about the fact that you can sell your way rich, because I believe that selling is the greatest profession in the world. It keeps free enterprise free. It gives you heaps of recognition if you're ready. It creates jobs, services, salaries, baby shoes, and infinite possibilities for those who are just a little bit awake to it. What we're going to ask on behalf of Career Track and myself is that you become a lifelong student of professional selling, starting by listening to this program 21 times. We want you to learn, master, and actively use these proven principles. They work for everyone who works them, and we want them to work for you in particular. Sell yourself rich. That's our goal for you. Our goal is that you find that there's a mission in commission. My friend Bob Proctor came up with that little line. It's where you get passionate about the mission called selling, and you serve for the sake of serving, love for the sake of loving, and care for the sake of caring. The goal here is to be of great service and learn how to earn a 6 or 7-figure income. A 6-figure income is where financial freedom really starts, where you get time and money freedom. Until you're earning over $100,000 a year, you don't really have freedom dollars. Over $100,000 a year, which is easy and effortless once you buy into it conceptually. Because all you got to do is, if you're working 250 days a year, is earn $400 a day. And I'm going to show you how to do that and make it easy. If we could make it easy or hard, which way would you like it to be? Everyone thunder it forward?
Easy.
If it could be fun or work, which way do you want it to be?
Fun.
If you could make a whole lot of money or just a little itty bitty bit of money, which way do you want to go? Everyone? A whole lot. Perfect. Well, that's what we want to do. And if you learn, study, master, and then actively use, underline the word actively use and employ the 38 closing techniques and technologies that we're going to give you today, you're going to get R-I-C-H, which spells? Rich. And we want you to be totally rich. See, the great, grand, and terrific superstar sales achievers are happy, they're healthy, they're wealthy, they're productive, and they're profitable, personally and professionally. for themselves, their corporations, and they make everybody better off and nobody worse off. They know the win-win principles of selling. Now, most people think that superstar sales achievers are lucky. I want to suggest to you that they're definitely not lucky. They just live and work in principle. Now, I want you to prepare yourself for the most magnificent sales closing seminar that exists in the world today. These techniques are time proven, and they'll work if you work them. And if you work them, you're going to become a sales legend. Closing technique number one is attitude. You and I create, shape, and mold our attitude, and then our attitude creates, shapes, and molds our life. Example, last night I checked into the hotel next door. Elegant hotel. Lady at the desk I monitor as I'm walking in is an absolute neutral. When I come in buoyant, smiling, happy, with a professionally effervescent attitude. She starts to pick it up. Her whole vibratory countenance raises. See, life is an echo effect. It echoes back to you whatever you and I put out. She starts to smile. She starts feeling better. Why? She's in my energy orbit. That's the first way that we sell. We tell ourselves that we're a great salesperson in every situation, all the time, everywhere, just because that's who we are. And Emerson said, "Who you are speaks so loudly I can't hear what you're saying." Well, what happened? She got captivated by the energy, and her whole countenance she postured different, she started to smile, her eyes popped open, they started to blaze and be a little bit more dazzling. She and I started to interface a little bit. I complimented her sincerely and genuinely on her friendly, professional service attitude and her smile and her attractiveness and the joy I saw that she was exhibiting in her job. She felt so good. She said, "Well, I was going to give you this room, but as a result, if you don't mind, I'd like to upgrade you to the penthouse suite at no charge. Is that okay?" The point is that attitude does sell. I control my attitude controls my life 99% of the time. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but I've got a closing attitude, a professional, persuasive attitude. And you need it all the time. You need it with the waitress if you want better than average service, right? You need it all the time. You need it with your kids. Most people are great in the sales field, and then we drop our service attitude when we get home. I want you to live in the fact that you're going to control your attitude and control your sales. What did Muhammad Ali always say? He said, "I am the greatest." Notice he never said half greatest, quarter the greatest, next year, next month, some of the time, some of the place, I'll be the greatest. Attitude is only in the nowness. So the only time you can be happy is now. When can you be happy? Now. Only time you can feel like a confident, competent salesperson is when? Now. How do you do that? You start affirming to yourself that I'm going into life with an expectant sales attitude. You wake up in the morning and you close your outer eyes and you visualize all the sales that you're going to make that day. At night when you go to sleep, you lull yourself to sleep and say, "I'm going to make that sale, I'm going to make that sale, I'm going to make that sale." If you go to bed and lull yourself to sleep and program your attitude in advance, all night long you'll be out selling, and what'll happen is the next day you'll go out and catch up to those sales. I remember the first time I caught on to this principle. 17 years ago, I just read a great little sales book that inspired me, called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I read that you're supposed to program yourself to how much money you're going to earn the next day. So I wrote down that I want to earn $400 because I want to get into big-time selling, professional selling. 2:58 in the morning, my eyes pop open, I'm fully awake. The name pops into my screen of my space called Bill Widener. Now, I know that you always need to have paper next to your bed. I immediately wrote it down. Never heard of the guy, didn't know where it came from. Next day, I'm out cold calling. I go in the marquee of this building, says Bill Widener, State Mutual. I go into his office, there's no receptionist, there's no secretary. I see his office at the end of the wall, a gold plaque. Bill Widener knocked at the door, he welcomes me in. We shake hands. Within 5 minutes, he's giving me a check, and I'd earned over $400 commission. Why? The night before, I'd gone to bed and say, I'm going to serve greatly. I'm happy to serve greatly. I'm going to earn over $400. Now, how do you professionalize that one little iota more? To program your attitude, I ask all of you to write on like a little 3x5 card. This is where you start. Now, I've made it day glow, right? And I've put mine under plastic, but it says I'm happy to earn. And then you write in wherever you are in your earning level. I'm happy to earn $50 a day, $100 a day, $200 a day. You keep this card loosely in your pocket or your purse, and you think about it when you wake up in the morning. You think about it at lunch, at dinner, and right before you go to sleep at night. You lull yourself to sleep, and you'll become a great, confident, competent salesperson. Sales has three basic aspects. You and I are employed when we're prospecting, presenting, and persuading dash closing. Prospecting is when you have a little prospect's name. Now, I believe that you ought to do prospect's name again on these little 3x5 cards, and you have the prospect's name on there, and you have their address and telephone number. When you've got a card, all you've got is a lead. That's a suspect. When you get with them eyeball to eyeball or ear to ear on the telephone, then you've got a prospect. When you're physically with them and you suddenly get to the category that Joe Girard, the top car salesman in the world, says is wallet to wallet, then you've got somebody that can really buy. The point is, you go from prospecting to presenting. Now, presenting is where you really make the sale. You handle all the objections, because in sales, there's only going to be 30, 40, 50 different kind of objections no matter what your sales profession, and they're always going to be exactly the same objections, so you learn how to handle them. But when you hear them coming, you don't jump on the person. You just handle it smoothly with grace. And back to that point number one, you have that selling attitude where you just stay centered. You stay calm and resolute. And you go through that presentation and you make your offer irresistibly attractive. Like one of my clients, Liberty Financial, has 3 closing questions they ask. They said, if you're not a millionaire, would you like to be a millionaire in this decade? Number 2, can you save $3 a day? Well, most people say, yeah, I could probably save $3 a day. I probably waste that much every day. And number 4 is, would you like to be a self-funded millionaire? Well, everyone's going to say yes to that. That's a 3-question close. Why? In closing, in presenting, we know that selling isn't telling, it's asking questions. What's selling? Asking questions. Everyone touch yourself with 2 fingers. That wakes up your subconscious. Say, I'm a great question asker. Everyone, I'm a great question asker. Now, how do you get to be a great question asker? You decide to watch the pros, and you get good at asking all the questions, so you hit their emotional hot button, because people buy on certain kind of hot buttons, and what you want to do is be persuasive. And when we're going through all this material, you've got to adapt it and adopt it to your own use, because the question is, am I a presenter or a persuader? Presenters don't get paid very much. They're called commercial visitors. The average person sells in 5 minutes, spends the next 3 hours buying it back. One of the great sales trainers of all time is a wonderful chap named Fred Herman. Fred Herman was on Johnny Carson's show, and Johnny Carson says, I understand that you're a hotshot salesman and that you can sell anyone anything. He said, I didn't say that, you said that. He said, well, if you're so good, why don't you sell me something? And there happened to be an ashtray, so he said, why don't you sell me this ashtray? Johnny gives it to Fred. Fred said, well, it looks like a nice ashtray, don't you think? He said, yeah, it does look like a nice ashtray. He said, well, Johnny, if you were going to buy an ashtray, why would you buy it? He said, well, to hold cigarettes, or if it was clean, it could hold jewelry, my, fine watch at night. It could do lots of things, and it would keep the place clean and neat. He said, that sounds like a good idea. He said, Johnny, if you were going to buy an ashtray like this, and this one served your needs, what do you think it'd be worth to you? He says, oh, I'll give you $5 or $6. He said, sold. See, it's easy to sell if you just remember what seals the deal is that you ask questions. What have you got to ask? Questions. Now, I have 2 glorious daughters that I'm absolutely enamored with, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. The 4-year-old has become a master salesperson who I will talk about, a great deal. But we're walking hand in hand, and she looks up and says, Daddy, if you're real nice and ask please, I'll let you carry me. Now, is she an effective, persuasive closer? You bet. She understands the program, and the program is easy. What's the program? Easy. Why? Because you impress it in your subconscious, and you have that great sales attitude, and you'll express it in your life sales experience. Principle number 3, the appointment close. It comes from Ben Feldman. Now, Psychology Today magazine said he was on the cover of Psychology Today magazine as the best salesperson in the world. He sells for New York Life Insurance. He has broken all the records. He is a man that's a professional with high ethics, high integrity, great generosity. He has hair that looks like Albert Einstein, like he put his fingers in an electric socket. He talks with a little bit of a lisp, and he only whispers, which is a great sales technology, because if you whisper, people start to lean in, and when they lean in, they pay attention. When they pay attention, they start getting hooked and basically hypnotized to you, and their eyes start to pulsate at the rate of their heart, and they start to buy because they want to know what you're going to say. Well, Ben Feldman, his 30th year in the sales profession, said, I want to break a record nobody's ever done before in life insurance selling. It's my 30th year, so in 30 days I'm going to sell $30 million worth of life insurance to people that do not know me. Now, what happens is in the sales field, you build self-respect, self-confidence, self-esteem, because you're eyeball to eyeball with yourself. You always know whether you feel good about yourself, whether you're smiling, because the people basically will be smiling back at you. Feldman loves cold calling, the shoe leather close, as we call it, and he does something that's never been done before. Your first name is?
R.C.
R.C. R.C., I'm trying to get to you, and your first name is?
Kathy.
Kathy. Kathy, you've just become the secretary, just for the sake of this little demonstration. I come into you and I say, Kathy, I've heard a great deal about R.C. and I really want to get to him today. If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is have you walk into R.C. with these 5 $100 bills, and I want you to tell R.C. that I'm going to trade him 5 $100 bills for 5 minutes of his time. Fair enough? 2, 3, 4, and 5. Would you take those 5 $100 bills, walk into R.C., ask him if he'll give me 5 minutes of his time for 5 $100 bills, would you? Just do it right now.
Not 4 minutes.
Yeah, pretend I'm not outside. Pretend I'm outside now. Just walk in, say, R.C., will you give, there's some guy standing out there named Mark Victor Hansen, will you give him 5 minutes of your time for 5 $100 bills?
5 minutes of your time for $500.
You bet. Have him come in.
Have him come in. Thank you, Bat. What happens is 98% of the people meet with him, and all of them give back the money, and also 98% of the people buy. Why? They want to see what he's going to sell. Now, you know, in the verve of any great sporting activity, you've got to, it's the last 2 minutes in a basketball game that you win or lose. That's where you watch my heroes, guys like Michael Jordan, really come to play. And Michael Jordan is a pro, because a pro is at his best even when it's not working. He's got double sprained ankles, and he still flies through the air with the greatest of ease and slam dunks. A salesperson isn't a salesperson unless they can make a 5-minute sale. I sell R.C. what he wants the first time, go back and sell him what he needs the second time. But you got to get with him. We said you've got to get with the person physically to make the sale, and you got to do whatever it takes to do that the first time and make a favorable impression. Now, Ben Feldman does that with the money and then goes in and sells the person. Another example of that just happened to me, I was up in Toronto, Canada, night before last. I get into the hotel room, and I've often got different little gifts in my room. But somebody had sent me a dozen long-stem chocolate chip cookies, which is what is in this little package. Now, your first name, my dear, is?
Michelle.
Michelle, if those were in your hotel room and there's a little business note from me to you and you got there, would you open them up? Please open them up, all right, if you can. And when you open them up, what happens is, would this have a little mental impression on your mind when you open up? Have you ever had anyone give you a dozen long-stem chocolate chip cookies?
No.
No.
Missed that one.
So this happens to be a first, right?
Yes.
For those of you who've never seen them, yum. Doesn't that look good? Right? Now, you'd read the note. Is that correct?
Sure.
And it says, the first thing you do, Mark, when you get in is call me. And all it had was his name and phone number, John at this phone number. If you got those, would you call him? What's the answer?
Yes.
Yeah. The appointment close. Be unique. Be novel. Be innovative. Be creative. We don't need any more boring salespeople. We need people that can create sales at the depth of their conviction, because if you're not convinced, you're not convincing. If you're not sold, you're not going to be able to sell. This guy wanted to get with me. He knows I love chocolate chip cookies. My brother is in the audience with me today, and our father was a Danish baker, and a great one, and I'm hooked on pastry. The point is, this guy got the appointment, and he made the sale. You say, well, I can't do something like that. If you think you can't, you can't. If you think you can, you can. Touch yourself, say, I can do it.
I do.
I'm a great salesperson.
I'm a great salesperson.
I'm a master at getting appointments. Everyone?
I'm a master at getting appointments.
Now, you ought to have a little written sheet of affirmations that you drill, practice, and rehearse, that you go over and over and over, that you start to own. And at the front end, it's not going to be comfortable. At the front end, you're going to hit a terror barrier. At the front end, you can say, well, I don't know if I can do that. I can't earn that much. I'm not worth that much. I want you to understand, I'm worth it. Everyone touch yourself and say it. I'm worth it. Second part to the appointment close. Using the telephone. First name?
Russ.
I'm trying to get a hold of Russ on the telephone. I have gotten a lead to him from RC. We'll do it that way, and then we'll do it without a lead. I call up, and I say, Russ, this is Mark Victor Hansen. Our great mutual friend, RC, told me to give you a call. What happens? All the barriers come down. All the resistance comes down. He's not going to listen. There's some hitchhikes on that. But I say, I'd like to share an idea with you that has been of other attorneys in the area, and I'd just like to take 10 minutes and run it past you. If it fits your philosophy and pocketbook, we'll do some business together. If it doesn't, I promise you I'll be on my way. Fair enough?
Sure.
Fair enough is also a great subtle close. The thing about closing is that once you're doing a presentation, it's a layered close. You close on top of closing on top of closing, and you get omni-effective at closing, and the results come pouring in because there's a cause, effect, total resultant. The cause is you have to know how to sell. The effect is that you start getting the commissions, you start making the sales, selling your product, service, personality, the benefits, and people only buy benefits. We'll talk about that more in a minute, and the ideas that you've got, right? The other approach, I am talking to him on the telephone. He is bragging about RC. I've already sold him. He and I are in high resonance. He gives me his phone number without asking permission. I hit the conference call button on my phone, dial it up. RC answers the phone. He says hello because it goes straight through the secretary, straight through his wife, straight through the kids because they have great friendship. And he says, by the way, I want to introduce you to Mark on the phone. And you're in. That's the best way to prospect. I mean, if you can prospect easy or hard, which way do you want to prospect?
Easy.
Back to what we said. It is easy to make a lot of money. Fourth closing technology is called the comparison close. I believe you ought to study close at hand all the best salespeople in the world. If you haven't studied masters like Lee Iacocca, Dr. Armand Hammer, Peter Ueberroth, H. Ross Perot, Trammell Crow, Mary Kay Ash, the list includes hundreds of people. You need to study them. Because anybody that's a pro in any field is using the same technology that'll make you a pro in another field. And salespeople have the propensity of making infinitely more than doctors or lawyers, according to the article 1 Million Millionaires in America, January 16th, 1986 in the U.S. News and World Report. So this is a profession to get rich if you just know how. And today we'll teach you how, and then all you got to do is take action. What have you got to take?
Action.
And repetitive action, and keep doing it and then checking up on yourself. Lee Iacocca is one of my heroes. I heard him talk not long ago, and essentially he said that his new Grand Van Dodges and Plymouths are every bit as safe as a Volvo. That was the essence of what he said. And he said, quality's back. That was his presentation. I was listening close. We owned a Volvo. I've got kids, and we want our children to be able to have their friends travel with us, and a Volvo is a safe, wonderful car, but it just didn't have enough access room for all the kids that my kids are proactively friendly, and they want everybody to go to Disneyland or wherever we're going. So my wife and I said, look, we need a different vehicle. I said, look, I just heard Lee, and boy, he sold me because he's sold. And I would like us to get one of the Grand Vans, if it's okay with you. And Patty said, well, let's go. And we bought the best one, the most expensive one that exists. And he said that the car was safe because it had a balloon in the steering wheel that guaranteed that you would not go through the windshield and that your life would be safe. God forbid an accident happened. He said we got a double-line gas tank that cannot explode and cannot flame and torch your family. God forbid you get rear-ended in an accident. I'm going to tell you a story that just happened to me. I want to tell you that there's good news at the end, so you don't have to worry. My wife and 2 daughters were recently driving to dance class, 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, crossing over a highway. They were on a green light, totally innocent. A guy at 55 miles an hour plows into the back of our Plymouth Grand Van, crushing in half of the back, hitting with such velocity at 50 to 55 miles an hour, both back rear tires popped off. Left rim carves into the asphalt, tipping that thing over on the side, shattering all the glass immediately around. Airbag blows up, saves my wife's life, but glass carved into her arm, giving her stitches and breaking her elbow. Now, I just want to stop there for a second because, you know, I never bought the car to have an accident, right? That's the difference between price and cost. The price was very expensive, a one-time, very high price, but the cost is my family's still alive. What I'm saying here is that Lee sold me, and I was sold, and I'm thankful that I'm sold. And the point is that that's what we call the comparison close. He compared it, or in essence, to something else. I bought into the model, and then the model served me greatly. At the front end of the whole closing process, though, you've got to really get into the qualifying process. And there's 4 little parts of it. Does the prospect or person you're talking to need what I have to sell? Number 2, do you or could you use what I have to sell? Number 3, Can you afford it? And number 4, will you buy my offer? It is that simple as a process. Number 5 is the erroneous conclusion question. It stimulates the buyer to make the decision now. Christmas time, we're out buying Elizabeth a little bicycle. It's the middle of December. We found 2 bikes that we're equally hot on for her. It seems like a perfect little Christmas gift for us. Saleswoman knew the erroneous conclusion question and was a master at it. She sort of thought we preferred the pink little bicycle, so she said, look, I can have this ready and delivered to your house on December 27th. I said, no, you don't understand. This has got to be under the Christmas tree, Christmas Eve, December 24th. Erroneous conclusion question. By correcting it from December 27th to 24th, I bought. Practice the erroneous conclusion question, because if you practice it like all these closes, you've got to drill, practice, and rehearse 50 to 500 times until they permeate, penetrate, fill the inner spaces of your mind, so you know them so well that you cannot not sell. Now, all of us on occasion hear somebody say, I can't afford it. How many of you in any sales situation have ever heard somebody say, well, I'd like to, but I can't afford it? First thing you do is you doubt it, and we'll talk more about that later. Say, you can't afford it? Now, if I don't believe that he can't afford it, he won't believe that he can't afford it. And the guy says, well, it costs too much. You say, well, if price is your only concern, then let me tell you what I've got to tell you, and we'll handle that at the end. Fair enough? And you just go through it easily and effortlessly. You say, well, I can't afford it. You say, well, what if I give you terms? This is like when Walter Matthau, the great actor, is in the hospital and the doctor says, oh, you are in terrible shape. You've only got 6 months to live. He said, I won't have any money unless I live longer. He says, well, how about if I let you live longer? You know, you've got to give terms. The guy says, well, it costs too much. You say, look, if it isn't exactly what you want, then it's free. So with your permission, I'll continue with my presentation. Fair enough? And you just keep going through. Say, it costs too much. Well, let's see if you can use it. And then, if it does fit your philosophy and pocketbook, give me your answer at the end. That makes sense, doesn't it? Simple to close. In a financial industry, where they say, look, if I could show you an investment that was the best investment in the world, could you find $5,000 to invest? They say no. Say, well, could you find 4? They say no. Say, could you find 2? Say, yeah, I could find 2. Now you've qualified them. See how easy it was to qualify? What does it cost? You mean if you take it or if you don't. If you do take it, your investment is X. And never call it a cost, call it an investment. What are we going to call it?
Investment.
Now, if you don't take it, it's going to cost Y. Let me give an example. Client says to me, trying to buy my seminar, well, Mark, what does it cost? I said, you mean if you take my seminar or if you don't? If you don't, let me tell you what's going to happen. You've told me you're going to have 2,000 executives sitting on the floor. At $100 each, you've got $200,000 sitting on the floor per hour. And you're quibbling about a few dollars per person. Now, you are paying how much for dinner for each one of these people? And they says, well, $25 each. I said, you're paying more for a physical meal than you are a mental meal, and you want the confreres to have take-home value? I said, here's the real price tag I want you to understand. What does it cost if you don't have me or at least another professional speaker? You have amateur hour out, you're going to have a disenfranchised audience, they're going to be disgruntled, they're going to be bored, they're going to be uptight, and they're not going to come to your convention next year, and everybody loses and nobody wins. If you have me, everybody wins and nobody loses. You're going to have people that have a content-rich seminar, they're happy, they're elated, and here's what I hear more than any other single comment about my seminars, Mr. Would-be seminar investor. They said that one little talk from Mark Victor Hansen changed my life. It paid for the whole conference. Isn't that what you really want with your people, RC? That's what I thought you'd say. I got to talk to the great Broadcasting Association in Southern California, and they had one of the clearest closing systems that I've ever seen. They say you got to clarify, testify, verify, and get them to buy. Clarify, that means make your presentation so crystal clear that it is an invincible sales presentation. How do you do that? Listen to the pros in your sales profession. If anyone else is earning 6, 7, or 8 figures a year, you can do it too. Ask that person, say, please, can I just shadow you? Can I be your mentee? You be my mentor. You be the teacher, I'll be the student. I promise I won't say a thing in a sales situation. I'll just follow you around quietly and humbly. But mentally, take notes. Pick up on their cognitive style. If they got radiant eye contact, you have radiant eye contact. If they got above average handshake, you have above average handshake. If they do sincere, genuine compliments, you start doing sincere, genuine compliments. Whatever they do, you pick it up, clarify, do whatever it is they do. Verify, go over what it is that you're going to do. Like if I'm verifying what you're getting in a seminar, I say, I believe your selling ought to be on a checklist basis exactly like a pilot. When I flew in last night on American Airlines, I asked the pilot on a 727, could I have one of your checklists? He has a checklist. Do you have a checklist? Every sale that you go through, have you got a little check sheet of all the closes and then you check them off? When you start doing that, you're going to find out why you lost all the sales. You say, and you beat yourself up. But it doesn't do any good to beat yourself up if you're poor with a lead hammer or rich with a gold hammer. The deal here is I'm not into having you beat yourself up, and I'm having you clarify, verify, testify, then get him to buy. Tell him a clinching story and then ask for the order. What do you got to ask for?
The order.
Alternative choice close is one of my absolute favorites. I love alternative choice closing. It is the flavor of choice. Alternative choice closing is prefaced in a couple different ways. Usually the lead line is, would you prefer, or it doesn't make a bit of difference to me. Alternative choice is not chance closing, it's do you want this or do you want this? Would you prefer this or would you prefer that? Who's the hero of heroes that created this? One of the great sales trainers of all times is Elmer Sell the Sizzle, Not the Steak Wheeler. Height of Depression, Walgreens drugstore in Chicago is right going down in the tubes. They've gone from being in the black to being in the red ink, and they were hemorrhaging bad, just like most customers were. They call up Elmer, who is a great salesperson, come sales trainer, and said, look, can you train our people to sell so they can sell in the height of the depression? This is a critical little parenthetical thought I want you to have. There can never be a recession or depression as long as salespeople who can sell do sell aggressively and effectively, have the rubber hit the road, get the order, get the PO, get the contract, get the agreement, get the check, get the deposit, whatever it's called in your profession, and keep selling, right? Money keeps moving as long as people keep selling. It's a real simple thing. We'll never have a recession or depression as long as salespeople keep selling. So I really want you to have a high level of honor and self-respect for yourself. Well, Wheeler has that. He goes into Walgreens and he asks the right question. Any sales pro asks this question. What's the most profitable item you sell? And what's the easiest item that you sell? You always sell the easiest item first. You make the easy sale and then you go back for the hard ones once you have the people into agreement. He goes into Walgreens and says, what's your most profitable and easiest sell item? They said, eggs. He said, well, what do they cost you? Well, he said, wholesale right now about 1 cent each. He said, well, how do you retail? And we say, well, do you want an egg in your drink? And most people would say no. So he said, well, we'll switch one little question, alternative choice question. Do you want 1 egg in your drink or 2? Which would you say?
2.
2, but we've gone from no eggs to 2 eggs. First week, height of the depression, they sold 89,000 cases of eggs. They became buoyantly profitable. They became the most profitable chain of their decade because of one little closing item. You say, well, what does that mean? Who else uses that? McDonald's uses that. When you're checking out of McDonald's, what do they say? Do you want an apple pie or a berry pie? And you say, well, that's just a simple question, and that's even in their computer. Yeah, that's on their computer screen. Alternative choice questions should be on your computer screen, so it comes up every time. Now, it's easy. Would you prefer this or would you prefer that? And you make it so easy that it becomes irresistible. Now, there are 7 ways to do the alternative choice close. You can do time, you can do money, you can do place, size, quantity, people, and information. We'll go through each one of them. Time. If you're cold calling, you walk in and say, do you want to get together now or 5 minutes from now? And, you know, it's so silly that it works. Do you want to get together tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock or 2:30 in the afternoon? Now, for those of you that are really into professional selling, I want you to know that you sell twice as much before 12 noon as you do after, so you ought to have breakfast appointments. And I believe with my heart of hearts that if your product or service or personality benefit or idea that you're selling fits, have 2 or 3 breakfast appointments every day. All the great pros do. Guys like Mark McCormick, the sports promoter, great, you know, has 3 or 4 breakfasts. You don't have to eat at all of them. You just get with the people, right? You say, do you want to get together now or tomorrow? Now, there's another little thing. If you're dealing with a big decision maker, somebody who's running a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, getting with them in a short time is generally going to be a stretch. So here's my recommendation. ask for future time. And one of the great pros out in Connecticut, Tom Wolf, a sales pro, taught me he has all of his appointments set up a year and a half in advance. First name? Noella. If I call you up and say, Noella, this is Mark Victor Hansen, RC told me to call you. I can hardly wait to get with you. I've got something phenomenal to share with you. I'd like to get with you next March. Is it better if we get together on March, a year and a half from now, on Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
7:30 or 8:30 for breakfast?
7:30.
7:30. My place or your place?
My place.
See how easy it is? All you got to do is close, 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 and you keep stacking it and packing it, and you keep layering it, and you do it. Money close. Would you prefer to pay cash or charge? We've all heard that. But from a sales point of view, here's what the monthly investment is, and here's what the initial investment is. Nobody wants to know the total investment. Now, some of you say, well, does that really work even in retailing? You betcha. Sears Roebuck makes more on financing stuff than they do on selling stuff. When you go in to buy a refrigerator, it says you have this many monthly payments, or if you want to pay annually, it's this much, and it's always going to be more, but they want you to do the finance charge, and it's always broken into, you can either pay $10 a month or $15 a month, depends on the term, right? But it's always alternative choice, and they just do what the monthly terms are on what they think the people can afford. So all you're doing is just a little bit of an investment. You say, well, that's too easy. In the financial industry, when people are selling tax shelters, municipal bonds, IRAs, KIOs, 401ks, what do they say? Do you want to pay Uncle Sam or yourself? What would you say? Myself. Myself. Well, I hope so, right? Because the objective here of a patriotic American is to avoid taxes, not evade them. The difference is 15 years.
In part 2 of 38 proven ways to close that sale, Mark will explain the order blank close, the yes momentum close, and the puppy dog close, along with 12 other popular closes.
You can literally sell your way rich, and in a decade of the 90s, I think you're going to be seeing warp speed income opportunities available for the first time. What's going to happen is that you saw the last quarter of 1989, things happened that just could not happen. The Berlin Wall came down, you got a united Germany, you got a common market happen, you got a democratic Russia thanks to Nelson Mandela, you got a liberating Africa. We are becoming a one world marketplace. You've got to learn how to sell and sell at levels of effectiveness you never thought before. Close number 6 fits this kind of close. It should be a close called the order blank close. It's got to look like it's routine, so you do it all the time. So it's effortless effort, right? To the beginner, when you're learning how to sell, you come out being an unconscious incompetent, then you become a conscious incompetent. You know you don't know how to sell, and you're afraid to fill out the order blank. And all the testing shows that 70% of all sales interviews end in a failure to ask for the order and fill out the application. This is why you got to drill, practice, and rehearse it on your family members, on other salespeople, and you go through it so often and so much that you say, oh, I can do that all the time. That's easy. And you go into being a conscious competent, to use Maslow's term, and then an unconscious competent, so it's automatic, and so that sales just click. Use your fingers and say, my sales are clicking. Everyone? My sales are clicking. And before you go into every sales situation, click your fingers and say, my sales are clicking, and look into the car mirror if that's it, or go into the restroom and say, I'm going to make this sale. Touch yourself and say it. I'm going to make this sale. Because you need a buoyant attitude. Now, I've got my friend Patricia here, and we are sitting down at a simulated desk. We've just gone through a sales presentation. We're talking about her taking a certain kind of time planner from me today, and she's going to buy it. I've got the application conspicuously out on the desk. I've already gone through the whole sales presentation. We're at the very end. It is at this time that you bring out your ink pen, and my recommendation is from John Malloy, the guy who wrote Dress for Success, that you use an expensive, high-quality ink pen. You bring out the application, and you start it with this question, because as long as the ink pen's flowing, she's buying. You say, Patricia, what is your, and you notice I'm leaning in, I've got magnificent eye contact, and I'm starting to nod and smile. I say, Patricia, would you please give me your best business telephone number? It is?
860-0066.
Now, what have we learned in the automobile industry? You start with a telephone number because it's neutral soil. Nobody's going to stop that. And your last name is spelled?
Connell.
All right. Now, you ask everybody how to spell their name. You say, well, wait a second. A name like yours, Mark, can only be spelled one way, M-A-R-K. My name has 6 spellings to it: M-A-R-K, M-A-R-C-K, M-A-R-Q-U-E. There's lots of different spellings to my name. John can be J-O-N, J-O-H-N. And your first name is, do you want Pat or Patricia? We're alternative choice closing her.
Patricia.
Patricia. And your middle initial. Now, if you're a real pro and if you have resonance with a person, you just automatically fill out their name and say your middle initial is
J.
J. Or if you're selling something for somebody else, you say, well, your son's middle initial is, and that's where you start it. And you go through it, because you've got to keep that ink pen flowing. As long as they're not stopping you, they're buying. And the goal here is to sell easy or hard. Which way are you going to sell?
Easy.
You want to get so good at this that you're smiling and nodding and you've got agreement. Now, there's one superstar salesperson over in Toledo, Ohio, the great John Savage. He sells in 15 minutes, and then he says, Patricia, if you don't mind, I'm going to have my secretary come in, and she'll just fill out this stuff. It's a perfunctory thing. It's totally non-threatening, and then we'll be in business together. Fair enough?
It says
John Savage is able to sell 28 different people a day. He sells more per month than most people do in a sales career lifetime, because he's got somebody else doing all the perfunctory work. He handles the eyeball to eyeball, be as real sensitive, make sure they resonate, so you can go to the order blank easily and effortlessly. Okay, Patricia, it looks like I've got your name, address, phone numbers, and your Social Security number here. We're all set. Would you please be so kind as to sign right here at the X? Breaking our props. What happens is that as a salesperson, you're not supposed to ask somebody to sign something. Simple reason is they say, oops, I got to check it with my spouse. I got to check it with my attorney. Got to check it with my accountant. We're told in school never to sign anything without somebody going over it other than you. So you say, would you put this down? Would you please be so kind as to authorize this, witness it, okay it, go along with it? Just put your John Henry here. There's lots of good, acceptable terminology, here. And she does. And you say, well, thank you very much. Here's your copy. One copy goes to the company. One copy goes to me. It's a pleasure doing business with you. As I promised, we'll stay in business together for our whole lives. Thank you very much. Give her some applause. One of the more extraordinary closes that I've ever heard comes out of the computer industry. It's a gutsy, it's a direct close. It works when you work it. Now, I'm attempting to sell Noella a computer, and I say, Noella, looking at this little computer of mine, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is you're sold, you want it, you got to have it, you need it, and you need it now, where are you in a sales process? Just give me any number, 1 to 10.
5.
5. The next question that follows that, if it's anything less than a 7, is if I could offer you whatever it is that you want to get you from a 5 to a 10, what is it that you need to know about our computer so we can make this buying investment today?
How would be most profitable to me?
How it'd be most profitable to you. If I can show you how it's going to be profitable, how it's going to be easy to use, how it's going to be effortless and totally affordable and a sweet now and now, then you're going to have it as a 10. Is that correct?
Correct.
Then we're in business together today. Now, this time do it as a 10. Noella, on a scale of 1 to 10, now that I've told you everything about our computer, and it looks like what you want, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in the buying process where 10 is high?
I'm at 10.
A 10, good. Then all I do is I pull out the application, say press hard, there are 3 copies. Right? You make the sale easy if you can make it. Getting positive yes answers. If I show you a giant slide and it says the answer is 52, you've got to sculpt, create, organize the questions that are going to get down to it. How do you get to the answer 52? If you know the answer, you can fix the questions. The answer is 52. Give me some questions that fit that. Anyone out of the audience?
How many cards in a deck?
How many cards in a deck? Great, Sue. Any others? How many weeks in a year? Great. What's after 51? What's the number before 53? Right? If you know the answer, and the answer we're looking for is one salesperson to another is yes, yep, I'll take it. I want it. See, every time they buy from you, what they're saying is, I like you. I trust you. I believe you. I respect you. I think you really understand in your heart of hearts what it is that I want. And I'm going to buy from you, and they give you their little check. And what is it? It's a self-esteem statement that says, I like you, I love you, I trust you, and let's do business together, and let's be friends. Incidentally, the minute somebody does give you a check, that's the day to overwhelm them. Call them back and say thank you. Write a little postcard, send them a little note, and make sure that you're thankful to the secretary that gave you entrance to Mr. or Mrs. Big Decision Maker. Yes, momentum close. A real pro closes once every 50 to 60 words because they get the people nodding their head. They get them in agreements. They get them into concurrence. There are 18 questions that build the yes momentum close. They're questions like, aren't they, aren't you, can't you, doesn't it, couldn't it, don't you agree, don't we, shouldn't it, wouldn't it, haven't they, hasn't he, hasn't she, isn't it, isn't that right, didn't it, wasn't it, won't they, and won't you. The 18 questions that cause people to say yes are usually used at either the beginning of the sentence, wouldn't you agree that this is exactly what you want, or at the end of the sentence, this is exactly what you want, don't you agree? Now I'm going to ask you to turn these into little flashcards. I'm going to ask you to tape them to the dashboard of your car. I'm going to ask you to learn one intensively per week. You put wouldn't it on the dashboard of your car, or on the mirror, or on the mirror at home, and you look at it again and again and again, and you drill, practice, and rehearse. You go over it 50 to 500 times until it really saturates and impregnates the fabric of your being until, like in computer language, they say garbage in equals garbage. But we're talking about a success sales affirmation in, and it's got to come out. Be a speaker close. I'm going to ask you to choose in favor of yourself. Learn how to speak. Take whatever classes are necessary. Learn how to stand on your feet. If you can talk to one person, you can talk to two. If you can learn to talk to two, you can talk to 20. If you can talk to 20, you can do 200, 2,000, 20,000, or more. The trip here is that no one sells 100% of the people. You've got to enroll them. Handling the price objection. Everybody has two light bulbs in their head. One is price, one is value. When you first go into the client, which one looms the brightest? Price. It costs too much. Now, price is something that you pay once and forget about quickly, generally speaking. Cost is something that you pay again and again because you got an inferior product, it didn't live up, it wasn't reliable. They were worried more about the bottom line than the top line, giving you the highest quality and the quantity of service. Example, I used to be a really frugal, parsimonious shopper, and I run every day, and I bought a pair of cheap running shoes with very little cushion. Nobody told me that there was a price-cost comparison here, and I paid a high price. I got a herniated disc. Now, instead of paying $150 for a pair of running shoes, maybe I only paid $49.95. But the price tag was abject pain for 3 months of my life until I got it cured, right? The point is that I will always go for the higher price because over the long term, it's going to be exceedingly inexpensive. Likewise, I buy a Mercedes that has a high front-end price. It's got prestige, it's got value. I plan on that thing going 1,000,000 miles, just like in Germany. If you do a calculator closing yourself, you find out you pay 2.5 cents a mile. So while the price was high at the front end, $56,000, long term, it's inexpensive, it's invisible, it doesn't break down, it keeps on keeping on. So it gives me a benefit that I would like. Now, talking about benefits, that's the next close we're going to go into. You got to have 777 benefits. These benefits have got to be in writing. My cliche is don't think it, ink it, delegate it to document. Write down the benefits to the customer. What are the benefits that you're giving them by doing their product? What are their benefits, number 2, of working with you? Number 3 is what are the 7 benefits of them working with your corporation? Because there is brand loyalty. People do keep buying the same thing once they understand what the benefits are. That's why we all know the number 1 anything in any company in the world. The number 1 soup company in the world you all know is? Campbell's. Number 1 fast food company in the world is? McDonald's. Number 1 rent-a-car company is? I mean, you just start to know that. So you say, well, give me an example of 7 benefits. Well, I want to give you an example of 7 benefits that you're going to get from attending this program. Fair enough? Sure. Number 1 benefit. I believe that your self-esteem is going to be immeasurably enhanced and expanded as a result of attending this seminar. How many of you would like to have more self-esteem? I rest my case. Principle number 2. You'll sell more in less time, making more money, and become rich. How many of you like to sell more in less time as a benefit? Could I see a raise of hands? How many of you be willing to sell? Principle number 3 is sell yourself rich. Could I see a raise of hands? Principle number 4, it's going to put more fun, joy, and happiness and productivity, therefore, in your sales effort. How many of you are willing to have more fun, joy, and happiness when you're out doing what you got to do? See, a real pro is always a pro, but they love what they do so much. They're in it for the mission, and the commission is just an automatic, axiomatic byproduct. Money comes to play in your backyard to see what kind of person you are. Guys like Arm & Hammer don't do it for the money. He's way beyond it. Bob Hope, who I've been with because I had it written in my book called Future Diary to meet him, you know, at 87 years young or so, in his 80s somewhere, does not have to work. But he works because he loves it. I want you to sell because you love it. Your company is going to shower you with praise, honor, recognitions, rewards, awards, perks, and other benefits you can't even expect, greater than your highest aspiration. How many of you are willing to have the bouquet of all that good coming your way? Could I see you raise your hands? Number 5, your life and lifestyle will dramatically improve for the better. How many of you are willing to have that happen? Incidentally, when you're going through the 7 benefits, close the people once in a while and ask, is this what you really want? And if it's not, ask them what they really want and change your benefit statement, because there's always some hot button that you got to press on that person to get them to buy. And find out what their hot button is, not yours. People buy for their reasons, not yours. And you ask them why they bought when they do buy. You ask them why they bought when they didn't buy. You ask them why they canceled when they do cancel an order. And the one who's got to handle that is you, not your secretary, not your assistant, not your sales manager. You call them up and say, why did you decide not to buy from us? Why did you cancel the order? Is it something that I personally did? Is it something that the company did? It's something that I need to know about because I really want to source and serve you. Principle number 7, you're going to love the profession of professional selling. I don't think there's a better profession in the whole world. I know it is my right livelihood. I know it is my vocation that I can get passionate about. I hope it's yours. I've been selling since I was 9 years old, and I plan on selling for the rest of my life. There's not a day of my life that I don't sell. And the more you sell, the better you get at it. And the more you sell, the more people you'll have to sell. People will start coming to you instead of you going to them. See, the law of life is attraction from the outside in. The law of life from the inside out is action. You take the action and you'll make the attraction. Benefit number 7, you're going to be in high demand and low supply. Rarefied air comes to those of us who learn, master, and employ these simple technologies of selling. See, because the average salesperson only knows 2 closes and only actively uses 1. Yet all the research shows that the average person doesn't buy until they've been closed 7 to 9 times. Right? So the more closes you know, the more you can use. That's why we said you get to listen to this program a minimum of 21 times until you have ownership of it. Sales close number 17. Trial close. This is where you're going in on the buyer and you're checking his or her pulse. If you don't mind, I just want to check your pulse rate. And I say, have you convinced yourself to take this beautiful home, or do you need more information?
I think I've convinced myself.
You think you've convinced yourself? We're done. This is a trial close. You say, well, do you want the house or what? They might say, no, I don't want the house, and you're dead. But if you say, have you convinced yourself, or do you want more information? If they say they want more information, what do you need to know? They'll tell you what they need to know. Then you answer with another question. Remember, it's layered. And you say, well, if we could give you that benefit, and a benefit is defined as a promise for future delivery, then would you take this home? She said, if you can really deliver that benefit, like I don't have to put any money down, or I get a deferred payment, or we can extend it 3 months before we have to close because my house isn't sold, whatever it is, if we could give you that and guarantee it, then you're, in principle, you're willing to go ahead right now.
Absolutely.
Trial close is a safe close you asked before. You say, in your opinion, do you agree? And then it's not a hard close because you're only getting their opinion, and if they say yes, then you immediately finalize it. Remember, don't oversell the customer because they buy for their reasons when they're ready at their time, although most of the time we can read it. The secret close. This is where you say to them, and you usually do it in a whisper. You say, can I tell you a secret about our company? You say, look, our company's just had a brand new breakthrough. And what's true about our company is I know you're ready to buy this little handheld calculator, but what I want you to know is that next week the handheld calculator here is going to have a readout board that works just like a typewriter, and the memory goes from 64K to 128K. Do you mind if I sell you the new model for exactly the same price, and then you get the best? That's what you really want, isn't it? And you're going to be the first to get it. right? Or you tell them some benefit or some breakthrough, the secret clothes, or we're featuring something next month, something that's brand new, unusual, different. Invitational clothes. You say, you want it, why don't you give it a try? You want this new Mercedes, why don't you give it a try? You want this new house, you want to try to have tailor-made shirts for the first time so you can look like a CEO and have cufflinks and have your name on the front. Puppy dog clothes. This is a clothes that comes out of you give somebody a little puppy dog and they keep it forever. Then they pay for it later. It is a universal clothes. It is underused, and I want to give you just a couple quick applications of it. I run every day, as I said. For years, I ran with a beautiful dog that I had for 17 years called Twice. People say, why do you call your dog Twice? I said, because he won't come when I call him once. He was a big dog of careless parentage. Twice finally finished life and light beamed up to the big gold door. We went out and bought a pedigree golden retriever, and my wife and two daughters take our dog to get inaugural shots over to the vet. When they get to the vet's kitty, and the vet's a great dear friend of ours, has just had kittens. And there's 2 twin kittens. And the vet says to Melanie, my littlest daughter, who's 2, Mel, why don't you take home these 2 kitties to your daddy and see if he likes them? The point is, we now have 2 absolutely lovely kitties. When my little brother and I were kids, we got the first TV in our block. It was a humongous TV in a maple case that came with what is now called a hi-fi and a radio and a little itty-bitty screen. But it was the first TV in our block. And what's critical is my dad got sold the TV on the puppy dog clothes. No one else in the block had a TV. In the old days, it had a big brown knob, and you'd turn on a TV and you'd sit in front of it. Well, it mesmerized us because it was new, unique, novel, and Howdy Doody was on as a first show, I remember. And my brother and I are sitting there, and we invite all the friends and neighbors and relatives, and my parents have a little block party, and everybody comes, and they sit in the sofa. The next day, the guy called back and said, Mr. Hanson, we just want to know, is the TV fine-tuned? Does the radio have good frequency? Is it what you think you really want? You want to keep the TV, don't you? Could my dad give that TV? He paid $700 for that TV at a time. In today's dollars, that's easily $7,000 or more dollars, right? High-ticket item, puppy dog clothes. Had the same thing happen just in my office. Now, I've got a big company, and I don't make most of the buying decisions. We have computers like most of you, and a guy came in and said, you don't have a laser printer? You aren't modern. Why don't you just try it? You're doing a lot of desktop publishing now. Just try our laser printer. No cost. You don't have to guarantee it. Don't have to promise it. Just try it for 30 days. Guess who's got a laser printer? A lot of us have products that would lend to this, and we're just not using it because we haven't thought it through, or we don't believe it, or we don't know it. Reduction to ridiculous. I love this clothes. It has so many applications. It fits so many places. They use it when they sell encyclopedias. We're going to use it here to sell a car. You can use it to sell a home. They use it to sell life insurance. I'll hit some of these different little applications. I'm trained in it. You know, sooner or later, you're all going to get hit with something that you want to buy and maybe don't know whether you can afford or cost justify, or you can't cost justify it to the client. To make it cost effective, you need to know the reduction to ridiculous, where you bring it down in time and money to where it costs pennies or dollars per minute, hour, day, week, month, or year. Now, Sue is buying a car from me. What kind of car do you want to buy?
A Peugeot.
A Peugeot. And her typical thing, which every buyer is going to say, is that it
Costs too much.
costs too much. Well, I said, great, Sue. You said this is the color you want, this is the interior you want, it's got all the features you want, all the guarantees, but you say it costs too much. So we asked, how much too much?
$2,000.
$2,000. Sue, do you know how to use a little calculator? All right, I'm going to give you my little handheld calculator here that does lots of wonderful things. I've turned it on for you. It is ready to work. You say that the car costs $2,000 too much. Hand her the calculator, because as long as she's doing physical action, she cannot object. You can only think one thought at a time in this beautiful, bountiful, brain-celled home entertainment center called your human mind. She plugs in 2,000. I say, Sue, how long are you going to own that car?
5 years.
5 years. Would you be so kind as to divide 5 into 2,000, please? And the answer is?
$400.
$400 a year. Now, You're going to drive that car every year, and it's $400 a year. How many weeks vacation do you take? 2 weeks. So you're going to drive the car 50 weeks. Would you please divide 50 into 400? And how much is that per week?
8?
No, it can't. I don't think.
$8 a week.
Yeah.
It's $8 a week. $8 a week? And you say it costs too much. Tell me, Sue. $8 a week. Are you going to drive that car 7 days a week?
Yeah.
7. Would you divide 7 into 8, if you would, please? And that comes out how much?
That comes to $1.14.
$1.14 a day. Tell me, do you use that car not only for work, but I'll bet sometimes you'd even use it on Saturday, and maybe you'd even take it to church on Sunday and to the beach after church. Is that correct?
That's true.
So we're going to use it 7 days a week. And how many hours do you commute on an average per day?
2 hours.
2 hours. Would you please divide 2 into, I think you said $1.14.
Right.
And that comes out how much?
57 cents.
57 cents an hour. Here's the question, Sue. Are you worth 57 cents an hour to drive the car of your heart's desire? When you ate at the best restaurant here in Denver, you left a tip for the waiter, waitress, and maitre d' that you may never see again and don't care about. Aren't you really worth 57 cents an hour to have the car of your heart's desire, one that makes you feel like the person that you really are?
I think so.
I think so. Good. We'll just go to the closing room and handle the details. Wonderful clothes. The retail clothes. You all have this mastered and don't even know you've got it mastered. Every one of us has been in all the major retail stores during our life, and when we go in, the amateur hour retail clerk who doesn't understand that they should be a sales consummate professional says, "May I help you?" And our response is uniform. It's always exactly the same. We're all preconditioned to say, "No, I was just
Looking.
looking," which means no money goes to that store. A lot of management doesn't know you got to intensively train. Like I train all the people at Nordstrom's to do $1 million a cash register, right? If you train somebody intensively, you can do a whole lot, and it's easy. Remember what we said, it's the razor edge. It's the little difference. It's the difference between the first horse and the second horse at the Kentucky Derby. None of this stuff's hard. None of it requires any ridiculous anything. It's just easy. If he comes into the May Company here, and he's looking at gloves, I say, were you thinking of brown gloves or black gloves? Is your size 11 or 12? I'll bet you wear a size 40 long suit, sir. And you just take them and you go through it, and as you do it, you say, by the way, I've got to tell you, we've got the most extravagantly beautiful designer ties here. Normally, they're $100 each. We happen to have them on sale today for $50 each. And the tie is what makes the statement in your outfit, and you'd really like to have the best, wouldn't you? The ascending clothes. This is created in the encyclopedia business where they spend $250,000 to find out how to get people to agree, how to get them to concur, how to say, yes, 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 I'll take it. But I'm going to take it out of the encyclopedia business to an industry where I wrote the closing lines for one of my friends who owns one of the fastest growing pizza companies in the country, a little pizza company that does gourmet pizza called Pele's Pizza and Pie out in California. And what they do is we've got kids do an intensive survey method, knocking on doors. The kids are usually 15, 16, 17 in high school. They wear a Pelin or Pendragon outfit. Now, Pelin or Pendragon comes right out of Camelot. So they come up to your house and they're totally non-threatening. First name is?
Janice.
Janice. I come up to you and now I'm in a Pelin or Pendragon outfit. I'm asking you what's called the ascending close. I say, may I get your answers to a few questions?
Sure.
I want to do an aside here. May I get your answers to a few questions is better than may I ask you a question. See, if I say, may I ask you a question, she'll say yes, and then she'll say later on, I didn't promise you I'd answer it, especially if it's personal or confidential or something like that. But she's just committed to answering. May I get your answers to a few questions, Janice? And by the way, you cannot overuse her name. Every time you use her name, it's music to her ears. She pays attention. And in group presentations, every time you use somebody's name, it integrates the whole group, because in high school and college, we were all taught that if they call on one person, they're going to call on another. Better come to attention and be ready. Do you live here?
Yes, I do.
Good. Do you ever eat food?
Yes, I do.
Now, some of you say, well, that tickles me, that's funny, that's silly. That's exactly what we want, because when they're smiling, they're buying. Do you ever eat fast food?
Yes, I do.
Good. Have you ever had pizza?
Yes, I have.
You know, we've got a brand new store in the neighborhood called Pelle's Pizza and Pie, and we do gourmet pizza with whole wheat crust and any kind of topping you want. And if you're a vegetarian, you could even have vegetarian topping with absolutely fresh broccoli picked today and cauliflower. And what we'd like you to do is try one of our pizzas. The closed, just give it a try, right? And to do that, what we'll give you is, if you'll invest in one of our pizzas, we'll give you absolutely free a piping hot piece of peach pie with cinnamon on top. Would you try one of our pieces of pizza, please?
Yes, I would.
Now, once she's bought, she goes into our little computer program called Telemagic. We call and we intensively ask her all the sales questions of a pro that you all read in How to Swim with Sharks by Harvey Mackay. We know when her friends come for bridge. We know when the kids have basketball. We know when her husband has everybody over in his motorcycle gang. Now, some of you say, well, wait a second. I'm a professional. I don't knock doors. I don't do a survey method. I don't do that kind of stuff. I do a lot of work in the chiropractic profession. Chiropractors, once they get licensed, just like a lawyer when they pass the bar exams, have a period of time that they got to wait after they graduate school and all that. So I work with all the big practice management associations, and we teach them to knock on doors, do the ascending close, and say, do you live here? Is this your home? Do you believe in good health care? On and on, through a series and a smorgasbord of questions until finally, have you ever heard of chiropractic? Do you believe in chiropractic? Do you have a good chiropractor? If I were going to move into your neighborhood, Janice, where would you suggest I put my practice? Because you said you don't know anyone else that is a chiropractor in the neighborhood. And say, well, I think you ought to be down the block from me. Well, you know, that's what I was thinking. I really appreciate your advice. Here's one of my business cards. If you think about it, give me a call. Fair enough? In California, we just had one guy, 1 month out of school, just get licensed but couldn't be activated for a month, knock on 7,000 doors. 1 month, 7,000 doors. Shoe Leather Express. First month, took in billings of $91,000. Is that a fast launch? Go like this. Some of you say, well, I can't do that. By the way, back to principle number one of attitude. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. A service close. It's where you be a friend and ask the closing statement. My client, Cellular One, that only a few years ago didn't exist and now is doing billions of dollars worth of business, says we want to have lifelong employees and lifelong customers. So once you take a car telephone from me, your name is? Pat. Let's say you put a car telephone in your car. I finish by closing you and saying, Pat, it is 8 times harder to get a new client than to keep the one we got. So what we want to do is serve with a smile, serve professionally. Make sure we take care of you, love you, like you, enjoy you, and take care of you and put you on a pedestal. I want to make sure that we stay in touch, Pat. How often would you like me to call you? Would you prefer that I call you and make sure your system's working monthly or quarterly?
Quarterly.
Quarterly. Great. And you just type it into your little handheld calculator, and it says, I'm going to call him back quarterly in a Telemagic program. And then, in fact, that'll be at the top of your telephone thing. You say, Pat, this is Mark Victor Hansen. I'm doing exactly what I promised you. I want to stay in touch with you quarterly. How's the phone system working? I said, great. If everything's great, then what you ask for is referrals. Because you want to go from sale to sale, success to success, prosperity to prosperity, so your money is making money, so you literally sell yourself rich. But what Cellular One has learned is that every Pat that buys from them over the lifetime of the telephone is worth $750,000. They've done such a good job that they've now sold the automobile industry, and soon we're going to have car phones installed just like radios and cassette players come in as automatic equipment. Is the marketplace changing, ladies and gentlemen?
In part 3 of 38 proven ways to close that sale, Mark teaches you the related story close, the implied consent close, and the impending event close, as well as 12 other successful closes.
Related story closing. Now, this is where you go right to the person's heart. You laser beam in. Now, the story can have either a positive or negative ending. The best salespeople are all master storytellers. Now, I want to do a segue on that and just say, well, some of you say, well, you know, you want me to also be funny and light and buoyant, and I can't tell a joke. If you keep telling yourself you can't tell a joke, what can't you tell? A? All of us were born with perfect memories. What are all of us born with? Perfect memories. When I started speaking, I asked my motivational mentor and teacher, Cabot Robert, I said, do you have to be funny to be a professional speaker? He said, only if you want to get paid. Likewise, some of you say, well, I can't tell a story. Life is a story. It's a continuing story. Jesus was a master at the rhetorical story. When he was enrolling his disciples, he said, you like to be a fisherman of men, wouldn't you? But he always prefaced that close with a related story. Right? Everything was a story, a parable, and there's a story within a story, and if the customer doesn't get what you tell them, then you retell them, and you say, what I meant by that was, and you go exactly through it. Become a phenomenal storyteller. But again, you got to drill, practice, and rehearse it. This is one of those little games that you got to write it out. This is where you buddy up with somebody that is a more spectacular salesperson than you, and there's always somebody out there, and you ask not for a hand out, but a hand up. The next couple closes all fit into a formula called handling the objection in the close. The formula is called the ready formula. R is that you reverse it. E is that you explain it. A is that you admit it. D is that you deny it. And Y is you just simply ask, why did you say that? Explain it. They object. Now, you never call an objection. You say, that's a good question. And then you go right into the explanation. And that's why a salesperson has to have 99% more information in his or her mental sales arsenal than they're ever going to need or use, because you got to be a pro. And a pro works all the time. So R stands for reverse it. Person says, I can't afford it. Say, you can't afford it? Person says, I don't believe in insurance. Said, you don't believe in insurance? And then the E is for explain it. And you say, let me explain insurance to you. This is the most sincere I love you that a husband gives his wife when he light beams out of the program. And what I want you to understand, Mr. Prospect, is that I am one heartbeat from eternity. My clients and friends are all one heartbeat from eternity. You are one heartbeat from eternity. And life isn't a dress rehearsal. You don't know what heartbeat that's going to be. Heavy close. It's called go for the jugular.
Yes.
I know one guy who comes in, Charlie Tremendous Jones used to come in and slam down a 3-foot casket and say, we're going to talk about your last days. And then he'd open it up if the guy didn't buy, and inside was a letter on that guy's stationery to his wife that said, Dear honey, today Charles Tremendous Jones came to sell me insurance, and I would not buy because I don't love you and I don't love the kids. Pretty clear explanation, eh? A, admit it. In every sales situation, you're going to have lots of rejection. You handle the rejection. Mentally, you shake it off. If you get too rejected, you go into the bathroom just like a dentist does and wash away all the anxiety, and you wash your face too, and you fluff your aura, and then you go back out into the sales field. Why? You say, why? Why did you decide not to buy from me? Why do you feel that way? Why aren't you giving me referrals? And then after you ask any question, including a why question, J. Douglas Edwards, the late great sales trainer of sales trainers, says, shut up! Because whoever talks first buys. If you ask for the order and you're nervous and you keep going and sound like a chipmunk, they're not going to buy. The next close is the implied consent close, or sometimes called the assumptive close. We assume that they're going to buy from us all the time. We've got an expectation about it. And I've just interviewed the top current living salesman, as far as I know. This man happens to be a 35-year-old Jewish rabbi with 9 kids. He could not financially cut it as a rabbi. Saw a little ad that said you could earn $1,500 a month selling insurance. He said, I'll go for it. In 1987, he earned $1 million first-year commissions. Last month in December, he sold $1 billion, spelled with a B, dollars worth of insurance. That's more than half the insurance companies in America. He does it all with finesse and style and substance. His name is Sam Friedman. He's with the great New York Life Insurance Company. When a guy told him that was headquartered in the Empire State Building, he says, where's that? He's cute. He has a great sense of humor, but he's got one implied consent close, the likes of which I've never heard before. First name? Jeremy. He says, Jeremy, what you need is 1 unit of insurance for every $70,000 worth of income. That's how he starts his whole sales presentation and closes quick. Because I believe you have to sell and then go resell and resell. But get the first sale fast and easy. What happens is that one little line is you need 1 unit of insurance for every $70,000 of income, sets him up like he's taking an SAT test, like he's taking a driver's test. And if the premise is set, they've got to figure out the conclusion because you've set up the puzzle. Well, Jeremy says, well, that's easy. I earn $140,000 a year, divide 70 into it, says I need 2 units of insurance. Only 2 questions is, number 1 is what's a unit? Right? And a unit is $1 million worth of insurance. And you can rewrap this same close against anything. And number 2 is, do I really believe in it? And suddenly what he says is, holy cow, I'm worth $1 million. I own a Mercedes. I bought a great diamond ring for my wife. I bought her a fur coat. Yeah. I ought to have $2 million worth of insurance. And so he starts selling at a higher level than ever before, and he is expanding the belief system in an interesting way. Next close is the impending event close. This is where my wife saw an advertisement that was sent to us, and it says, 1 day only sale at May Company, 50 off on everything in a whole store. And if you're there from 8 to 10 and you're one of our special customers, and of course we fit the category of special customers, which means somebody who spends a whole lot. Well, because it was a 1-day sale and you could save 50% and an extra 25, guess who is there at 7:45 with his wife, right? Lee Iacocca uses this kind of close, which is an impending event close. He says, if you can find a better car, buy it. And then it goes right to black, a first 15-second commercial like that. You need to have those commercials that are instant, that are so poignant, that are so clear, that they've got urgency and vitality. Next close is a loyalty close. Guy said, I'd like to buy from you, but we've always been doing business with this one company. Say, I appreciate that. We like people who are loyal, and we sincerely appreciate you being loyal. 2 parts to the qualification question here is, number 1, tell me the things that you like most about the way that they're serving you. And when they tell you, have out your little yellow pad and write them down. Number 2 question after they've set you up is, say, what is it that you don't like? And you write that down. And then whatever they didn't say about the service, you say, by the way, did we tell you that we give you a 1-hour turnaround here? And that it's done. It's that simple. It's that easy. Number 35. Positive question openers that get a yes. Positive yes-getting questions work like this. It's where you ask easy questions and give hard answers. In the old days, we always taught that you go for the jugular, ask hard, disturbing, fact-finding questions, and then give easy answers. Well, the tone and the time has changed, so we've got to have a new look at it. And we say, Mr. Prospect, you could get excited about working with our company. You could get excited about our plan. You get excited about your future profits. You get excited about this marketing opportunity, couldn't you? Get excited about the leadership that we exemplify. Looking down the road, you can see yourself making $1 million with this product, can't you? And everyone's going to be better off and no one will be worse off. Looking down the road, not only are we going to help you get that first home, but we're going to help you get that second home that's going to be a self-perpetuating money tree that makes you financially free and independent. And that's what you really want, isn't it? Say yes. The see it close. You say, you can see how this works. In your situation, you can see it, can't you? Now remember, more people using NLP terminology are visuals than anyone else. This is the person that when you ask them a question, their eyes go up to the ceiling. Because what are they doing? They're reading their mind print. They're saying, is this consistent with what I believe? So you say, you can see that we're providing you the home that you really want. You can see that this is the color that you asked for. And you've always got to reassure the client. You can see that this is going to solve all your time planning needs, so you can schedule yourself out for the next 50 years in advance, which is exactly what every sharp Japanese person does. They all have a 50-year plan. And for most Americans, long-range planning is, what am I going to do after lunch? You can see why that kind of planning will be a great deal of help, can't you, Patricia? Security close. It gives you a great deal of security to know that this place has the best fences around it that money can buy, and that we've got a live-in security agent that walks the grounds. You can feel the safety of our product, can't you? It makes you feel secure to know that you're going to have peace of mind now and into the future by just being committed. With a few drops of ink, you're going to change your whole life. You're protected and your loved ones are protected. That's important to you, isn't it? You're going to be continually served by me. And best of all, we give it a lifetime guarantee. This product's going to take you right into the future with no ifs, ands, or buts. And that's what you see in the Maytag commercial, where you always see the Maytag man going, snoozing, because the Maytag doesn't break down. And what they show when they're testifying is the little Maytag letter. It says, I've owned my Maytag product since I got married 17 years ago, and it never broke down. I just wanted to write you and say thank you from my heart to yours, a Maytag user. The reassuring close. It's reassuring to find a company that has been in business 21 years like ours, isn't it? It's reassuring to know that you're dealing with the #1 salesperson in the #1 company in the world, isn't it? It's reassuring to know that we have the product you want at the cost you can pay at the time you want it. We've got our warehouses full, and you'll never be out of supplies if you're dealing with us. People need reassurance. Every one of us has bought something and it hasn't been there when you need it. And it blows your mind, or it does mine. Next close is a Ben Franklin close. Ben Franklin is one of those masterful closes. It is one that is rarely used, almost always underused. Attorneys get a great deal of use out of it. First name? Brett. Brett. Tell you what, Brett, you and I have talked through this. We've gone over all the closes. I'm not sure whether Brett is sold or not, so I pull out my ink pen and I say, Brett, you're a successful, intelligent guy. And what happened was when Ben Franklin, who is a master salesperson, author, and wrote his own biography where this comes out of, here's what he did when he was trying to make an important decision like you are on behalf of your law firm. What he did is he took a paper, drew a line down the center of it. On the left-hand side, he wrote those important reasons for going ahead versus that idea opposed. Notice one is plural, reasons, versus idea singular. Now remember what I said, you have to have your benefits memorized. What have your benefits got to be? Memorized. And they got to come out fluidly, with just ease and effortlessness. And whatever it is that we're talking about serving your law firm with, we write down all those benefits. Now I said, as we go through this, the other thing I think that we ought to do here, Brett, is that we'll yellow highlight the ones, or blue highlight in this case, the ones that you think are the most important. Sell him what he wants so you can go back and sell him what he needs later. Get enrolled in doing the business, and then we go through those 21 reasons, and then we say, well, which side weighs heaviest? Those important reasons for going ahead, or that idea opposed?
On the left.
Left.
Four.
Then we're going to do business together, aren't we? Yeah. See how easy it is? We've now covered all the most magnificent closing processes that exist. You're going to have a magnificent sales future. I'd like to conclude it by telling you some of the benefits of you drill practicing and rehearsing and studying this. First of all, you're going to become a superstar sales achiever. Wouldn't that be fun? Say yes. Yes. Incidentally, when you're closing somebody, tell them to say yes, or you really want this, don't you? The close I created is yes or yes. Everyone say yes or yes. Yes. Now, it's an alternate choice close, but Ralph Ford out in Raytown, Missouri used yes or yes close, and selling his product earned $168,000 commission because the customer burst out laughing, almost fell out off their chair when he said, say you really want this, don't you? Yes or yes. Right? You're going to start to love serving, and you're going to serve at a higher level. Selling is going to be more fun, more joy, and create more happiness, productivity for you than ever before. You're going to make lots of money, and I think that's good. Superstar sales achievers are in high demand and low supply. To make sure you catch all these closes, for the next month, I want you to wear a little fat rubber band on your wrist. Anytime you think a negative thought, I want you to snap it. That causes pain. That causes mental pattern interruption. And you'll tell yourself, I'm thinking positively. Everyone pretend you're talking into a Dick Tracy watch in your arm. Pretend you snap the rubber band, everyone, and go, I'm thinking positive. Or if you're in a sales situation, and I hope you're meeting 3 or 4 potential buyers, decision makers a day, if you forgot to do one of the closes, when you get out and say, next time I'll remember the reduction to ridiculous close. Everyone, snap it. Next time I'll remember the reduction to ridiculous close. The negative snap of the pattern will dare you to win and have you snap into thinking positivity. If you do it 30 days, it'll become a habituated pattern. It'll be easy and effortless, and what you're going to win is a big share of the world's best benefits. I would that you find the mission in commission and that you become a highly profitable, productive, self-actualizing, fully functioning, no-limit salesperson. The Spirit in me honors and blesses the sales spirit in you. Thanks for letting me be with you all.